Hey, Keith McCrone here, and thank you very much for joining me on this video series that I am actually calling Big Breaks. Now, some of the comments I get from my drivers that drive the Porsche GT4 Club Sport for the first time on the track, they come in and they're like, wow, I cannot believe how powerful these brakes are. I can go so deep into the corner and get on the brakes, I'm still able to get the car into the corner and make the apex. And they're right, because that's the first thing that I noticed when I drove this car as well. So that's why I'm calling this particular video here Big Breaks. Now, if you take a look at this caliper that is on this particular GT4 Club Sport, it is the same brakes that is on the GT3 Cup car. Now, the brake pads in there have to be about 1.25 inches thick. You can imagine what it's like to brake using brake pads and calipers that are this size on a vehicle that's about 2,800 pounds. I can share with you the brake pressures that we're seeing with this when we're looking at data is upwards around 1,450 PSI. So there's no question that the brakes on this thing, I want to say, far exceed the expectations when it comes to a race car. Now, it's not just the brakes that come from a Porsche GT3 that's on the Club Sport. It's also the suspension components as well. That's what gives the rigid feeling inside the vehicle, and at the same time, we're able to keep the car stiff or rigid and still get mechanical grip when we're going through the corners. That's because the suspension, as I mentioned, is also shared on the Porsche GT3 Cup car as well. One of the other big advantages to this particular GT4 Club Sport is where the engine is located. Now, I've drove the Porsche GT3 cars, and the engine is off, let's say, back the rear end, over the rear axle or the rear wheels. That's where the majority of the weight is at. And yes, that can create a little bit of a tail-happy car, if you will, or let's say an oversteer condition. Now, Porsche's done a wonderful job in building in the geometry and the suspension and the weight distribution to try to eliminate that, but still there a little bit. While on the Porsche GT4, they move the engine a little bit more forward. I like to maybe call it more of a mid-engine car. It balances the car out a little bit more. So I want to say if you could throw it in the corner a little bit more, and it's going to be a little bit more forgiving. So the three biggest things I want to say on the Porsche GT4 Club Sport is going to be the mid-engine, okay? It's going to be the big brakes, and it's going to be the suspension. I look forward to you driving this car and you getting to experience these three items as well. If you have any questions, go ahead and shoot us an email at info@utde.racing, and then the phone number is down below. Look forward to seeing you at the racetrack.